Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Growth House Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Jesse Ray. And today we don't have one, we have two guests, Michael and Nathan with Howzit. How's it going?
How's it? It's going killer.
What's up,
That's
Jesse Ray? Yeah,
amazing.
thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So, guys, what I want to start with is first, the brand is called Howzit, if I'm understanding correctly. Where does that come from?
Yeah, so we're from Hawaii, so we're based here in the Hawaiian Islands. And in Hawaii, Howzit is it's how you say it's the all-encompassing greeting. So it's aloha, how's it going? How you doing? What's up? It's all of those things wrapped into one. But when you're local and you live here, it's how you really communicate to know that somebody else lives here as well, that they're rooted here as well. So you throw a little shaka and you just give the little how's it with the little head nod with the shaka, and that's like, oh yeah, okay, we're together. All right, yep. I know you. All right, good. Okay, we're here. So it just shows that you're rooted. And because we're rooted here in the Hawaiian Islands, we wanted to have a name that, although we're gonna grow and be in other places, that our roots really started here.
I love that. And I want to know more about you guys' background. Like, how'd you even get into hostels? Because that's something that I've never even looked to invest in. And we've never had a guest on the show that actually owns and operates a hostel. So there's so many questions I have. And for me, like, I only want guests on the show that I'm interested in the whole like train ride over here from south of France to Geneva. I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so fun. I want to learn so much from you guys. So Michael, Nathan, whoever wants to go first, how'd you guys get started in the real estate and then transition into hostels?
Yeah, well, I'll let Michael take this one, but I just wanted to say, as far as hostels go, we get told all the time that we're not hostel people. So I've never stayed in a hostel myself, but coming from that perspective, I think our story, as Michael walks through it, it's important to know and understand that sometimes having a different perspective on something can really help change the game. So yeah, Mike, if you want to take this one.
Yeah, absolutely. So prior to becoming business partners, we were colleagues, and we both worked together. We had W-2 jobs, and we were taking that money and we were independently investing in real estate. And in my situation, I was investing in short-term vacation rentals, and I experienced a lot of success very quickly, particularly because my properties are in Hawaii, and there's a strong barrier to entry and there's a lot of demand. And so I was able to really step away from the rat race. I was able to become financially free after securing a couple of these properties. They're 4-bedroom vacation rental homes, more on the luxury side. So from a financial perspective, I was able to see the light, and I thought, man, this is great. I got a taste of financial freedom. And both of us have had a passion for real estate for a long time. And so we wanted to collaborate. And so we started going through, we were researching ways in which we could invest. And most commonly, it's through, apartment buildings, multifamily real estate. There's a lot of education on it. And so we gravitated towards a course in which we could learn how to invest in apartment buildings. But the challenge that we found very quickly was we were comparing the returns, the cash flow of apartment buildings to what my vacation rentals were providing. And it wasn't as exciting from a cash flow perspective. It wasn't enough, in Nathan's situation to step away from his W-2. So we're like, you know, man, maybe is there a way where we can start scaling vacation rentals? And we hit a couple of dead ends, but so we went through this process of looking at apartment buildings, like I said, and we went and there was an apartment building that was for sale here in Maui, and it was kind of strange because the listing broker was providing details about how the property was operating. It was an apartment building, but it was operating as a hostel previously. I guess the hostel had shut down recently, and so they were marketing it for sale. It was vacant or nearly vacant. But we thought, well, that's weird. Hostel, huh? What's that about? Ultimately, that particular property ended up going into contract before we had a chance to explore that route. But the agent communicated that, yeah, well, yeah, if you're interested in that side of the hostel, I'll find you a property. He was kind of this crazy wild guy. He reminded me of the guy from Better Call Saul, like that character, Saul
Saul
Goodman.
Goodman, baby.
That's
Yeah.
the man.
He was
So
Saul Goodman. We never saw him, but man, on the phone, this dude was Saul Goodman. It was
High
crazy,
energy, just going after
bro.
it.
Oh, and he was spinning it up, man. He was just as soon as he found out that we might be interested in this concept, man, every property was a hostel.
yeah, so we were interested in buying apartment buildings, but just logistically, our first step into that, being in Hawaii, it was difficult to go explore purchasing apartment buildings in places, like in the Midwest or wherever you could typically get started for relatively a nominal amount. And so we started in our backyard. We found that there weren't a lot of apartment buildings for sale. There's not a lot of inventory. And so we were intrigued by this hostel concept. And so we ended up purchasing a property, a commercial retail property that had the correct zoning with the intention to convert it into a hostel. But as you recall, this was right before COVID. So as we started that process of going through the application with the county to get permits and to go through this conversion process, COVID really put an end to that conversion because financing was incredibly difficult to be able to not only get a loan, but to get a loan to convert a building. And especially since we didn't have any experience with hostels, it was, trying to get financing during COVID for a hostel was like not going to happen. Right. But when one door closes, maybe another door opens. And so we didn't want to give up on this idea because there was another hostel on Maui that provided a great, an opportunity to evaluate. Like, is this a real thing? Can this be an opportunity? We kind of ran the numbers based on what we anticipated this person's bed count was, and we could see what their rates were online. And so, we put the numbers together, and we're like, dang, dude, there's some opportunity in hostels. So we didn't want to give up on this. We ended up literally door knocking. We went to, uh, you know, every hostel that was on island, and we knocked on their doors. And one of them, again, this was during COVID. One of them responded, and the owner said, "Yeah, you know what? The world is ending. There's a lot of uncertainty. I've been doing this for 20 something years. I'm ready to be out. I'm going to move to the mainland. You guys want to buy this thing? Hey, let's make a deal." So that's how we ended up purchasing our first location in Maui, was buying an existing hostel from a seller that was willing to provide seller financing. And we took over this property right before the page turned with COVID, and we started to see a massive influx of travelers right about when we took over. So the timing was excellent from that perspective.
Yeah, and if I can
So
just make
a
sure,
couple.
there's 2 points in that thing that you went through that are big, but during COVID, we started this process like in the summer of 20, and everybody else was like, the world is coming to an end, and they were really waiting. Everybody was waiting to see what was going to happen with COVID. And I think it's really important for listeners to understand that sometimes when everybody else is waiting, that's when you attack. Look, we're talking about shared accommodations of a hostel during COVID. And I think you really need to set that scene to be like, who in their right mind is going to go with no experience, don't own any, is going to believe that this is a business model that's going to create success moving forward. This is a scalable business model. But we saw that, we went and attacked, and I think it's really important. And then the second thing is, we get asked all the time, well, we can't get deals. We can't find deals. It's just constant. But it's like any of the deals that we've ever gotten, they come from us. When we go through an agent, nothing ever transpires. But when we literally hit the pavement and go out and start knocking on doors, that's when we find the most opportunities. It's like, that's when things open up. So from an actionable, like people always ask us, well, what actionable steps can we take? And I think that there's a couple of really big lessons in there. Is one, when everybody else is, and now in the market is a perfect opportunity of that with high interest rates, right? Now is a
Mm-hmm.
time to go and deal seek and to go and make the opportunity before the competition comes back. And then secondly, just to have the courage to go and take action and to actually dig in. Those are two really important points to that story that really affected us and changed the direction of, I believe, our lives.
I love that you highlighted those 2 points. And there's a couple points I actually want to highlight as well. So when people get into real estate, they're like, okay, real estate's gonna be boring. You got short-term rentals, long-term rentals, multifamily. Mostly that's what people think about. And then we got sprinkled in there, midterm MTR, midterm rentals, and then co-living is now becoming pretty popular, thanks to Pad Split and some influencers pushing that, and that's what I do. And so hostels, though, hostels is something that I feel like are still kind of people don't talk about, people don't know, and all they think of is that kid with no money traveling around staying for $20 in a rinky dink spot. I know that's not how you guys set it up because I'm on your Instagram. I'm like, this looks super cool. As I'm traveling Europe, I'm like, guys, get some in Europe. I want to go stay in one of your hostels. Like, I love the sense of community that you have. But before I jump there, I want to ask you on that first deal. Existing hostel on Maui, I believe. How many
Yep.
hostels are in Maui?
There's three hostels on Maui. So there's one
Oh, that's it.
in basically the little town that we live in, and then there's one on a little North Shore community, a smaller one. There were two very small hostels that were located in Lahaina that burned down in the devastating
Mm,
fires of last year.
hmm.
So we had five, but we're down to three.
Got it. And then what is I mean, you fit a lot of beds in a room from my understanding. How'd you set up that first hostel? How many, rooms and then how many beds?
Yeah. Want me to take that one?
Sure, go ahead.
Well, this is a huge, huge part of what we've learned, with obviously commercial real estate. And you look at, well, how do you increase the value? How can you force equity, right? There's different levers that you can pull. And there's a huge lever that you can pull with hostels, and that's bed configuration. How can you look at the space based on the area in which and the demographics of that specific travel destination? You can quickly ascertain, how can I use the square footage of this place to maximize revenue? And that's really what we did. We went in and we learned very quickly, well, wait a minute, this room type is it's this room type is inefficient. This is ineffective. If we went and switched it to this, we could get either more beds, or maybe it's a higher demand bed type, like female solo female travelers. They a lot of times want to stay in female only rooms, and so they may have the highest ADR out of a dorm bed. So how can we position these? How can we put those rooms that would be, because they're solo female travelers, how can we put them nearest the bathrooms, near a female bath? How can we do these different things to really maximize revenue, both in ADR and occupancy? And so we really, room by room by room, and it took us, as we operated, it took us multiple iterations, but ultimately, and we're still going through that. We're still in September. We have, I'd call it maybe for now, our last iteration of saying, all right, well, this is what we've learned from a revenue standpoint, occupancy, ADR. If we position it this way, this is how we maximize. So each hostel is going to be different, based on whatever the travel destination is, and you learn that. But we took the same size property that was operating at about $670,000 of yearly revenue, and we're gonna, next year we'll scare $2 million. So
And to
we've
put that in perspective, what did it
yeah.
start off like? How many bedrooms were there in this
Yes.
hostel and then how
So there's
many
20, so
beds?
there's 20 rooms.
Okay.
There's 20 rooms. And then if you look at the way that the 20 rooms are configured, in the beginning, there was a maximum occupancy of about 49. And there was a split between private rooms and dorm rooms that was about almost 60-40 in private rooms versus dorm rooms. And what we learned is that the people that were staying in the dorm rooms were really the people that we wanted to stay in our hostel, because they were the ones that were the hostel goers, the international hostel goers that were looking for community, that were solo travelers, that weren't just looking for a bed to sleep in, but were looking for people to meet and have experiences with. And we're like, man, well, these are the people that leave the best reviews, that know what they're expecting. They're not just a person that's looking for the cheapest room on Maui, because that's not where you drive your best reviews. It's just not. So we started to increase our dorm bed mix, and now that property can house about 72 people. So we went
Okay.
from,
So you for like 50 to 70 essentially.
yeah, high 40s to mid 70s if it's maxed out.
So can I just give an example of how, from a revenue perspective, we increase the bottom line is, if you take a $129 a night private room, right, $130 a night, which there were several of, and you convert those into 4-bed mixed dorms or 4-bed female dorms. Well, each bed rents for $65. So if you rent by the bed, 65 times 4, that's $260 per night. So you go and you get 130 as a private, or 260 as a shared dorm bed. Not only do you generate more revenue, but now you've got, like Nathan was saying, the type of guest that are more inclined to be social, because if they're consciously and willing, wanting to stay in a dorm room, they're not just there because it's necessarily the cheapest. Oftentimes they're there because they do want the social experience. So from a review perspective, yeah, it all ties in. We were able to increase our revenue per night by changing the room style. But also, once the experience now is better, then the guests are having a better time. They leave better reviews, which then allows us to charge more per night because we have a better track record in terms of our reviews online.
Mm-hmm. And then
And
what's the
also, can
difference?
I touch upon one other thing too? I want to say that
Yeah.
Nathan brought up, which is, it's really important. So I think that there's this stigma with hostels, and it's warranted, because there's a long track record of hostel owners having, they have a passion for hostels. That's why they got started. And oftentimes hostels are known as cheap places to stay. And unfortunately, with that, over time, sometimes the operators can kind of just let things go, and they can, gain a reputation of not being that great. They can be dingy. But from our perspective, coming from non-hostel backgrounds, although we have a passion for hostels, we're coming from a different perspective, of more from a business minded side. And it's less about us and our passion for hostels, and it's more of ways in which we can create an incredible experience, not just for our guest benefit, but also from a business perspective. So when we took over this existing hostel, we saw an opportunity not just to change the room configuration to increase revenue per night, but to also improve the common area spaces. So we reinvested a lot of the cash flows that we started receiving into improving that area, so that now when people walk in, they're blown away. They're like, oh my gosh, I can't even believe this is a hostel. And much to your point, Jesse, you saw online, our Instagram or our website, it's not what you would typically associate with a hostel. It's really quite nice. There's this beautiful lounge area. There's pool tables. There's a foosball. Um, we had we hired a professional design team that have worked on high-end luxury locations, have done more lifestyle type hotel locations like the Moxie. So we went and hired a professional design team, and this is a more of a posh experience than your typical hostel. And for us, this was really about generating the prototype, because our intention was never to just purchase one hostel location. We knew from the very beginning that if we could go and demonstrate proof of concept, that we could scale. And so we went all in to really make this thing killer, knowing that by by blowing it out of the park in Maui, we could drop another one of these throughout the other islands, and we could continue to scale throughout the mainland. So that's been our goal from the very beginning, is to demonstrate a prototype that we can demonstrate proof of concept, and go and raise capital and scale this business.
Yeah, Mike, that's a really good point. We kind of skipped over that part in the beginning of, we wanted to do something big together, and when we went and researched the hostel opportunity, it wasn't just that we saw the opportunity here on Maui to find a building and convert it to a hostel. We looked at the market and we looked at what was happening, and the hostel industry globally, it is a totally different, internationally it's a different story. In fact, if you look at the market, the United States of America has the most hotels out of any country, right? So there's over 100,000 hotels, but yet with hostels, we don't even crack the top 15. There's only 309 hostels in the United States of America. And so when we saw this, we're like, wait a minute, there's all of this hospitality here. Why is this a missing piece? And then as we were going through this process and seeing, all right, well, it's, there's a stigma. There's a stigma in the US, but what short-term rentals, what Airbnb, what Uber, like all of these things started coming, co-living, all of these things started coming together at the same time. Like it's changing the mentality, was foaming the runway for what we felt like was, holy crap, this is not just a one-off situation. We can go attack this in the US, and we can go create a real brand around this. There is market opportunity, right? If you're going to scale, you need to have a market that has emergence to it. And we saw that this had that. And right as we did that and we made the decision, boom, one of the biggest international hostel companies called Generator came in and purchased a company that had 4 locations in the US called Freehand for $400 million. Right as we had made the decision and we're negotiating this, we're like, phew. And then the next year we go up and they create the first ever North American Hostel Association. Like, they've never had that, but now we're creating trade organizations and creating credibility, and there'll start to be new market pushes for what hostels really are and to do away with the stigma. So from a timing perspective, we're on that, like when you look at the curve, we're right as that curve starts to increase. We've developed our foundation already. So it puts us in a really good position as one of the early adopters in this market.
I love that. And you mentioned a little bit earlier the highest and best use. And I like when you get creative. And I'm one of those type of people because I looked at single family homes. So I'm like, okay, what's my highest and best use of this house? For me, it's co-living, renting out my bedroom. You saw that building in Hawaii and you're like, hostile. And so I love when people get creative and also like they see a trend and they attack it like you guys did. And obviously there's some big money behind it. A question I have is, since your hostel is not the common typical hostel that most people just want a $20 bed to go sleep in and don't really care about experience, they don't care about any of that. It's the opposite of you guys. So what is the demographic, like age wise, maybe even like what they're doing? And then also, is it more for 2 night stay, or is it, hey, people stay 6 months?
Okay, so no, they don't stay 6 months. We have a maximum length of stay of 14 days. And the reason that we do that, and you have to have proof of travel. So you have to show that you're coming in and that you're going out. And so we are a traveler's hostel. When people start to stay longer than that, it changes the dynamic of the community. So that's a imperative piece for us. And if you look at our demographics, 75 to 80% of our demographics fall in the 18 to 30-year-old range. That wasn't so when we took over. When we purchased this hostel prior to our rebrand, it was really probably, I'd say 70% 40 or over. So we have changed that by price point, by the the community that we've created, all of the things that we've already talked about has really changed that dynamic. We definitely have an avatar that we market towards.
So describe a little bit more besides me being sad now that I think I've aged out of your demographic. I'm 30, so I guess I can't stay there, but but what are most
Not
likely
true, not
these
true.
I got last this is my
We've got
last year I can stay at
65-year-olds
Howzit.
staying there all the time.
But no, I get
So
it with the target avatar. So are these people usually backpacking Hawaii? Are they studying abroad? What are these people typically doing?
yeah. Okay, so if we look at, we've got about 50% mix of international travelers, 50% mix of travelers from North America. So, but when we, dig in and start to look at, well, what really is that avatar? We look at what are the growing areas of hospitality right now. And the growing areas of hospitality are experiential stays. So people are looking for experiences, right? That's really the main thing that we're doing is we're bringing people together, and then we're not providing just a bed. We're every day of the week we're providing on-site and off-site experiences. We're taking people out into the island. We're going on, chasing waterfalls tours. We're going out to Hana Maui, where people would spend $220 for a tour to go and join in a band, and we're providing that for an unbelievable value proposition. So that's really the avatar, is experiential travelers that are looking for youthful, Instagrammable moments. Because if you look at our Instagram and you look at the videos that are being created, that's what people want. That's what the youth wants, right? They want to go and they want to connect, and they also want to be able to photojournal it, and they want it to be like, look at what I'm doing, look at what I did, right? And so all of those experiences are being provided, and then they're getting the authentic connection along the way. So that's the biggest one, experiential stays. The other one is solo female travelers. It's a huge area of growth in hospitality. If you just forget about hostels, if you dig in and go, what are the areas of growth in hospitality right now? Experiential travel, solo travel, and female solo travelers. So we're really attacking what are those travelers looking for? And that's what we're providing.
Yeah.
I want to dive
Can I
into
also
that
add?
because yeah, let me ask
I want
this
to say,
because this is on this last question.
sure.
You
Yeah.
mentioned female solo travelers, and I 100% agree because I did a post on my Instagram the other day, and I had like 5 girls hit me up and say, Jesse, it's so cool you can solo travel, but I can't because I don't feel safe. And I'm like,
Mm,
dang, there's a lot of places that my solo female friends want to go travel, but they don't feel safe. So I'm curious, how do you instill the confidence to be like, hey, guess what? Besides looking at your Instagram, there's like a bunch of girls together. So it's awesome. You have a community of a bunch of solo female travelers, coming together. Amazing. But what else do you guys do to kind of instill the confidence like, hey, no, this is a great and safe place for you?
Yeah. Well, look, if you look at on our website, you're going to see that there's these 6 values, right? And each one of those values, they're attached to human emotional needs, right? So every human, it doesn't matter who you are, there's 6 human emotional needs, right? And so we look at those human emotional needs and say, how can we in our business model attack every one of them? Because if you fulfill someone's human emotional need, and in this case, what you're talking about is security, right? We know if you look at our property, we've got we've got security cameras everywhere. And then when you walk in and you go to reception, you see big mounted monitors that show, oh, wow, man, every key you get, your every common space door has its own key lock that has a code that you get sent to you, and that changes for everybody, right? So we started digging in and going, well, how can we attack this feeling of certainty and security in all areas of the travel, from waivers to explanations to all of these different things? And so now if you're a female solo traveler, well, imagine you could either choose to go and stay in a little Airbnb by yourself, and that's it. You don't know what you're going to get. You don't know who's going to be there. You're going from you got to rent a car. You're going from your car to your at night back to your room, like all of these things, right? Or you could be with a group of people where there's constantly a host, where there's a tour guide, where there's an activity driver, and you're connected with like-minded people that are going through the same experience. So you have a sense of security, and anywhere you look, anywhere you're on property, your stuff is protected. There's key locks, there's codes everywhere, there's security cameras. It just feels like, wow, I know that when I travel with Howzit, I'm going to be taken care of.
Yeah, I think this is great. This is exactly the train of thought I wanted to express was, I want to add one thing. We also have 24/7 reception. There's always someone there on reception available to help if ever there's an issue. Let's face it, you've got people and people from all different walks of life, and some people might drink and misbehave, but there's someone there to be like, okay, let me handle this situation, right? It very seldom occurs, but if anything does occur in the middle of the night, for example, there's someone there to address it. And the other thing too that Nathan pointed out is a lot of the trouble and things that occur at places are, you know, we have the rule that you have to be a traveler. And so when you're traveling, a lot of people are kind of the same. They're like-minded, right? You don't see a lot of theft and things at our hostels. In fact, you don't see any theft really because people are all in the same boat. And we have security locks. When you book a reservation with us, um, prior to arriving, you automatically get a code emailed to you or messaged to you, and that's your personal code that unlocks your door. And so people feel the sense of security. They walk around, they see reception that's there, they see the cameras, they feel that wow, these doors are locked. So there is a sense, especially with female travelers, if they're booking a female only dorm room, that they're with travelers only. They're not staying in a place just because it's the cheapest. You don't have people that have been living there. There's an energy about the place that is vibrant, that is fun, that is easygoing, that is safe. And so you can feel it and see it when you visit our locations.
Guys, like whoever's listening to this, I'm already sold on this. Like I'm traveling solo and also with my friend Brian, but when I'm solo traveling, I want to do experiences. When I'm solo traveling, I'm going to the most beautiful places and then looking to my left and right and sometimes seeing no one there. And I'm like, that's the whole point. I want to share these experiences with other people. And so that's why I'm such a big believer in community, and everything you're talking about has such an alignment with what I love and also what I'm trying to create within our co-living homes. And I'm just right now, like I'm in this 5-star hotel in Geneva, but after this, I'm going to go get a cocktail on the rooftop. Cool. There's only so many times you can do that by yourself before you're like, I want an experience. I want to have those relationships. Every single country I've been to, every single city I've been to, the ones I remember the most are the ones where I build friendships, the ones where I have 4 other people that I just met. We hit it off, we become friends, and we do something fun together. Like those are the memories that last forever. And so people hit me up all the time, like, I want to live that solo travel life. I'm like, yeah, go do it, but it gets old. You're gonna want to have a house it type of hostel to plug into, especially if you're, younger and not traveling with a family or solo traveling. Like, I am hands down wishing that you had a house it here in Italy. I would leave this hotel and go, go to your spot. So I love what you guys are doing. I love what you're creating.
Love it.
Man, there's so many different ways I want to take this as we kind of wrap up in the next like 10 minutes. I want to ask you guys. You guys have an incredible Instagram. You have an incredible community. You have these amazing experiences. You are self-proclaimed not hostile guys. How do you create this community without ever being a part of this community?
Well, okay. So number one, we hired people. We found a hostel consultant. We went online and we searched and we found someone that had experience and connections that could give us advice. And this was incredibly important because one of the first things that his name is Lior, what he recommended was by design, you want to create common area spaces that force people to interact. You just mentioned that you're looking forward to going to this rooftop bar, and then the idea theoretically would be able to to have a conversation with someone. So we have created common area spaces where there is no getting around it. If you want to leave the hostel, you are forced. We have programmed the direction of the hallway so that you have got to enter the common area. If you want to cook something in the kitchen, we have purposely designed the kitchen to be somewhat snug so that you have to be interacting with someone. So everything by design, is catered towards getting people to interact and to socialize. But yeah, not having hostile experience, we went and found people that do. And part of it is just having understanding of human nature. I'm not going to say it's rocket science, but if you're imagining going and wanting up to go to the rooftop bar, you have an expectation. Hey, it would be great to meet people. So we've created spaces that although we don't have a bar per se, we have margarita night. We create an atmosphere where we'll offer people, of course they have to be of drinking age. We'll give them a free margarita. We don't even sell it. I think it's one or two drinks. And then we have karaoke night. So it's margarita night and karaoke night. And people get up there and start being silly. They get a margarita in them and they loosen up and they have a conversation. So we're creating these atmospheres where people are forced to interact. They can't escape the common area. And then once they do, they might have been a little reluctant, but we've had people write in their reviews that they'll say, this is my first hostel experience ever. And I was a little timid at first, but it was incredible that the staff encouraged me. They engaged with us. And that is huge for us. So staff engagement, not being hostile people. We read this book. It's Delivering Happiness by Tony Hsieh, I believe is how you pronounce his name, but the founder of Zappos, right? And the whole premise is to go above and beyond, especially with hostels. There's a lot of imperfections that that these buildings may or may not have. People will overlook that if our staff is just on board with providing and just being obsessed with the guest experience. So if someone is listening to this and wondering like, okay, how could I do something that's outside of my comfort zone or my knowledge base? Well, there's ways in which you can either hire people or you can learn by listening to a podcast or reading a book. And that's essentially what we've done. We've taken a dive into something that we had zero experience with. And we, within a very short period of time, actually, we were just awarded the number one small hostel in North America by Hostel World, which is an organization. It's the leading organization for hostels. So we are the number one small hostel in North America. And we accomplished that in less than 3 years with zero hostel prior experience.
But Mike, I do want to. So you brought up and you went through delivering happiness, but I want to talk about that for a moment. Like, you are a self learner. You've impacted me tremendously in that. Like, Mike is constantly saying, "Oh, I'm reading this book," and then I read it. I'm like, "Okay, I gotta," and then he's like, "Oh, I'm reading this, and I'm reading this," and so along the way, there have been, we've been really, really impacted by some different books along the way, and that was one, because what delivering happiness really is about, it's about instilling culture. And my whole life's work has really been a passion in leadership. And so a lot of leadership is getting people to rally around something, your ability to influence people. And I've heard you, it's one of the things that I was so excited to come on this podcast is I've heard some of your language that you use, Jesse, is like, it doesn't matter if I'm coaching football or if I'm leading an operations team of our hostel or whatever. When you're leading from a place of, my goal is to help people become the best version of their self. And I hear you say that all the time in your mission to go impact 1 million people, to help them become the best versions of themselves. Well, when you pair that with a book like Delivering Happiness, this desire to help people become the best version of their self, and then on top of that, you're like, all right, and culturally, to be our best versions of ourselves, let's go impact people in a way where we deliver wow, where we obsess over the guest experience, because ultimately the more that we give, the more that we get. And so we pair leadership with a culture changing philosophy and point, like obsessing over guest experience, as in the book Delivering Happiness. That's really it. for listeners out there, you don't have to be an expert to start, right? You can just understand that fundamentally, if I do the right things and if I put massive action into it, I can change, I can create culture, all of those things. That was a really powerful moment, Mike, that you just talked about in delivering happiness. It really has helped shaped ultimately our business.
Guys, I could talk to you for another 2 hours. So we're gonna do a part two. I wanna put that out there.
All
If you guys are
right.
down, I want to do a part two. I want to do even a deeper dive. But there's gonna be people that listen to this. They're gonna be like, "Hey, two things. Actually, probably three different types of people. One person is gonna be like, "Hey, I need to go fly to Maui and stay in this hostel." Another person is going to be like, how can I connect with these guys and learn from them and, follow their journey, etc., and be inspired. And then there's another camp of people that are going to be like, I want to invest with them. I don't know what they're going to do next, but they're coming to mainland or wherever, but I believe in these two guys. They're going to go on the website, check out the Instagram, be like, I want to be a part of this. So for those three different types of people, how do they connect with you?
Okay, so you can find us on Instagram. We're Mike and Nate, the Hostel Guys. You can visit our website, which is HowzitHostels.com. Or I guess you could also visit vortexmaui.com, which is the investment arm of our business.
Amazing. I see you guys right here. Mike and Nate, the Hostel Guys. Just gave you guys a follow. I'm excited to follow this journey and your story. What does it look like 3-5 years from now? Because I know you've already became the biggest and best hostel in all of North America in 3 years. So what does the next 3 to 5 years look like for you guys?
Yeah, well, I just got done creating the vivid vision thanks to Brian and the Action Academy. So
Yes, I
dug
got the
in
book
and,
right
and
here.
and knocked that out. So if we, yeah, right on, right on. So if we look at the next 3 years, look, we cast when we were developing the prototype, we had already cast the vision of creating a $400 million company, and in just digging into the vision, the vivid vision, we created a vision where in 3 years we'll have a valuation of $150 million. But what that looks like is us going out and expanding into high demand US travel destinations in locations that justify our business model, which we've identified, and then also venturing out into our parent company, Howzit Hospitality, of growing in some additional areas as well, where maybe a hostel isn't relevant. So yeah, we'll be our growth trajectory is we're right in it.
Fellas, I'm so excited for you. Like I said, I got a whole nother like 12 questions I wanted to ask. But as we wrap up, I'm excited to stay connected and just appreciate you guys being on the show.
Thanks for having us on, Jesse. Really appreciate it, man.
Thanks. Aloha.
Absolutely. Growth House Podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Ray, Nate, and Michael. You're going to hear the episode soon, and this is one you do not want to miss.